Today we're taking a look at a PC I got off of Facebook Marketplace for 35 bucks. It's got a 4th gen Intel i5. It's got 8 gigabytes of DDR3, no drive, and as you can see, it's absolutely covered in dust. So the first thing we're going to do is get this thing fully cleaned up, then we're going to see what we can do with it. So the first thing we need to do is take this outside in a well-ventilated area, get our electric duster, and just blast all this dust out as much as we possibly can. After blasting away all the dust, we can bring it inside, get it opened up, and move on to our next step. The front panel is still a little bit dirty, but we'll get that cleaned up later. For right now, we're going to upgrade the RAM from 8 gigs to 16 gigs. Next, we're going to remove the CPU cooler and apply some fresh thermal paste. I'm going to use some 75% isopropyl alcohol wipes to remove the old crusted on thermal paste from this CPU. I'm using wipes on the CPU cooler as well. I'm using alcohol wipes on the CPU cooler fan along with the exhaust fan to get that caked on dust removed. Next up, we're applying some fresh thermal paste to the CPU. We'll spread that around a little bit with a spatula, and we'll get the CPU cooler reinstalled. Next, we're going to do a little bit of light cable management just to get some of these excess cables out of the way, make it a little bit easier to install our GPU and our SSD. Before we install our GPU, we have to remove these metal brackets. In this build, we're using an AMD RX 552 gigabyte GPU. While the GPU is not terribly dirty, I'm going to go ahead and do a thermal paste replacement anyways before I put this in the PC. Next, we'll get the GPU installed in the PC, and right now we're just going to hook up our SSD drive just to get Windows installed, and we'll find a permanent solution to mount it later. Next, we'll boot it up for the first time to make sure all of our hardware is detected properly, then we'll get Windows 11 installed. I used Rufus to create a Windows 11 install USB. I didn't have any issues at all installing it on this older PC. Luckily, Windows Update was able to find most of the drivers. I downloaded the AMD GPU drivers directly from the site. I set up Secure Boot, I updated the BIOS, did everything else I needed to do to get this the most up-to-date as I possibly could. Now, originally I wanted to try to play Valorant on this PC, but I forgot about the TPM 2.0 requirement. This PC does not have a TPM 2.0 module. I don't think you can get one, and I have not found another way to get around that to play Valorant, so we're going to move on to some other games. I thought it would be a fun challenge to use this PC to see if I can play Counter-Strike 1.6, Counter-Strike Source, and Counter-Strike 2. Let's see how it goes. So I jumped into a random op map server. I've got the FPS max set to 100 FPS. This is running at 1920 by 1080, and we're very easily getting a consistent 100 FPS. Jumped into a Counter-Strike Source 24/7 Dust 2 server, and we're getting anywhere between 300 to 400 FPS. This is pretty much on all high settings, maxed out settings. I turned off a few things like HDR, bloom, and things like that. They just kind of bug me when I play, but overall it was a pretty fun experience, and this PC would be able to run any of those Source era games or the older Half-Life 1, Counter-Strike 1.6 era games just fine. So this was the big test. I didn't even think this was going to work, but to my surprise, not only were we able to launch Counter-Strike 2, but once I lowered the resolution to 1280 by 960, put all the settings on low, and jumped into a Valve Deathmatch server, I was actually able to play the game at around 100 FPS and have a pretty decent experience. Now, would I recommend playing Counter-Strike 2 on this PC? Not really. You definitely can, but you're going to have issues with lag and stutters, just mainly due to the hardware and the 1% lows, the 0.1% lows. But overall, you can play the game. So if you wanted to just play with friends or just kind of mess around and see what it's all about, you can definitely do that with this PC. So now that we know it can play some games, let's get this front panel cleaned up, get the rest of the PC wiped down, and let's get this SSD mounted in a proper way. I've noticed that this automotive cleaner for glass and surfaces is really good at cleaning up PC parts. So I'm spraying that down with that. I'm going to use an old toothbrush to scrub it down, and then I'll just use some water to rinse it off. And we will use the blower to dry it off, and then we will get that reinstalled. I wanted to get this side panel cleaned up really nice as well, so I'm using that automotive cleaner again with an alcohol wipe. Just going to scrub that down, then dry it off, and we should be good to go. So I was able to use an SSD screw and get this mounted to the case itself, just to kind of keep it in place. Here's the PC all cleaned up and running. And here's what it looks like with the side panel and front panel on. And I think it came out really nice. So here's the PC price breakdown of what I paid or what I would pay for these parts if I was going to buy them used. So the HP desktop itself, I got it for around 35 bucks. 16 gigabytes of DDR3 I already had, but I'd pay around 10 for that. The RX 550 I already had as well, but that's about 20 to 25 bucks. And then you can pick up a 256 gigabyte SSD for around 20 bucks. That takes our total to 85 bucks. So I think for that price, for under $100, this is not bad at all. It's definitely a fun little experiment. It's not going to play the newest games, the latest and greatest games, but it'll play some older games, and you can do a lot more with it than you think. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. If there's anything you want me to do with this PC or any games you want me to play, let me know in the comments below. I'll see what I can do. Thanks.